All right. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Altcoin Daily, where we drop a video about cryptocurrency every single day. That's why you guys subscribe to the channel. My name's Austin, and let's talk about it. Today, I want to share with you guys the story of Ethereum Classic. And make no mistake about it, team, this is a coin that 100% has a story. The series of events that led up to the creation of Ethereum Classic not only almost destroyed the Ethereum community, but is known as just a key bullet point in the history of cryptocurrency in general. And you know what? It's a little relevant again because Coinbase just announced, we've already seen this, that they will be adding it onto their platform, which definitely explains the uptick. So if you guys already know this story, maybe you lived through it, then you know what? I encourage you to maybe check out some of our other videos. There's a lot of good ones out there. But if you like stories that have corruption, betrayal, maybe a little bit of love, then sit back and let's learn something. What is Ethereum Classic? If you have been involved with cryptocurrency, then there is no way that you don't have an opinion on this. The battle between Ethereum and Ethereum Classic is both an ethical and ideological one. Before we start explaining the basic differences between the two, and then before I draw my own conclusions, at the very end, it's important for us to know a little bit of history. Check this out. So a lot of things needed to happen for us to arrive at ETC, Ethereum Classic. So let's dial back the clocks, set our DeLoreans to 88 miles per hour, and talk about some of the most critical points in not just Ethereum history, but cryptocurrency in general. Let's go back to the past. It all started with the DAO. And what is the DAO? Well, back in the day, back in 2016, it was a cryptocurrency. And a lot of people really liked it, actually, at the very beginning. But what is the DAO? Well, check this out. The entire ecosystem of Ethereum works on the basis of smart contracts. We know this. For the newbies out there, smart contracts are automated contracts. Automated contracts that enforce and facilitate the terms of the contract itself. So, they're smart contracts. The DAO, aka the Decentralized Autonomous Organization, was a complex smart contract which was going to revolutionize Ethereum forever. And what was the DAO? Well, it was basically a decentralized venture capital fund, which was going to fund all future dApps made in the ecosystem. So the DAO would make people like you and me, investors in the DAO, make us venture capitalists, so to speak. We could fund projects. It was very popular back in the day, as I said. It had a lot of hype. How it worked was pretty straightforward. If you wanted any say in the direction of dApps that would get funded, then you would just have to buy the tokens, obviously, for a certain amount of Ether. And then you could control, which projects were funded. Obviously, hopefully they made money and you made money. Well, the potential of the DAO and the flexibility, control, and complete transparency that it offered was unprecedented. Like I said, it was a very transparent way to do venture capitalism, and people leapt to get their share of the pie. And within 28 days of its formation, it had accumulated $150 million worth of Ether in a crowd sale, so many people bought in. And at that time, it had 14% of all the Ether tokens issued to date. So the point is, it was popular. People were excited about it. Now, and stay with me, team, this all relates to how Ethereum Classic was formed. Well, you might be wondering, hey, Austin, that's all well and good, but how does one get out of the DAO? What if some dApp gets approved that you're not a huge fan of? How would you opt out of the DAO then? Because you could, and not all projects you might be excited about. Well, to enable this, an exit door was created called the split function. Using this function, you would get back the Ether that you had invested, and if you desired, and check this out, team, because this all relates, You could even create your own DAO. In fact, you could split off with multiple DAO token holders and create your own little tiny baby child DAO and start accepting proposals. So like I said, this gave the individual the power for venture capitalism, and you could form a little child DAO, raise it as your own, and start accepting proposals. Well, there is one condition in the contract, which will come into play later, and which was, after splitting off from the DAO, you would get your refund, but you have to hold on to that Ether refund for 28 days before you could expend it. So everything right now looks nice and spiffy, right? You could get the refunds, it would just be held for 28 days. Well, except there is one little problem. A lot of people saw this possible loophole and pointed it out. Have you guys spotted the loophole yet? Let's keep going. Well, the DAO creators assured people that the loophole was not going to be an issue. The only thing was that it was an issue, and it created an entire storm that ended up splitting Ethereum and Ethereum Classic. So what was the loophole? Long story short, and I'll get into this in just a sec, the loophole was when you got that refund of Ether, the hackers figured out a way just to keep repeating this process and keep taking Ether out of the network to steal a bunch of money. Well, let's keep going. The DAO attack. On the 17th of June, 2016, I think we all remember where we were that day, someone exploited this very loophole in the DAO and siphoned away 1/3 of the DAO's funds. That's around $50 million. The loophole that the hackers discovered was pretty straightforward in hindsight, I guess. And like I said before, what the hacker did was they made a repetitive function that just kept getting that money back. And $50 million of Ether were stolen. And here's the kicker, team. It was stolen and taken out and stored in that little baby child DAO. And as you expect, pandemonium went through the Ethereum network. All hell was breaking loose. And I just want to be very clear. For those of you guys who are still tuned in, still like learning about this history, I want to be very clear about something. Before we continue, and I didn't write this, somebody else wants to be very clear too. But before we continue with the article, let's make one distinction clear. The hack happened because of an issue in the DAO and not because of any issues in the Ethereum itself. And as Gavin Wood, the co-founder of Ethereum, puts, blaming Ethereum for this DAO hack is like saying the internet is broken every time a website goes down. So the problem was the DAO. Obviously, that's why the DAO is now extinct and Ethereum is still number 2. Anyway, here's the kicker. This is what led to the collapse of the old Ethereum as people knew it. Even though the hacker did steal all that money, it was still sitting in the child's DAO. And as we learned before, he or she could not access it for 28 days. Well, with this in mind, the Ethereum community and team decided to take action, and 3 potential solutions were pointed out. Now, this article goes on and lists all 3. I'm just going to tell you right off the bat, the soft fork was ruled out. It would not solve the problem. So the 2 big issues people are saying is, well, we could do nothing, or we could hard fork it. And let me tell you the benefits of each. And first of all, team, it kind of amazes me that nobody does anything was actually a legit option that actually a lot of people really were vying for. And why is that? Why do people not want to do anything to solve the problem when a problem could be solved? Well, some people argued that making any changes will go against the very nature and underlying philosophy of Ethereum itself. After all, it's supposed to be immutable and code is law. So basically, there are a lot of crypto purists out there that think that because of the nature of blockchain, it should have no human interference at all. Live by the sword, die by the sword, basically. They were willing to take the hack because that's what blockchain's about. That was some people. And like I said, the soft fork was rolled out. The other option was hard fork. And what is a hard fork? Well, we're not going to go into that much detail, but for the layman, the primary difference between a soft fork and a hard fork is that it is not backwards compatible. And I'll explain this in a sec, but once it is utilized, there is absolutely no going back whatsoever. So think of a hard fork as, let's just say, Microsoft Word. We all have Microsoft Word 2018 maybe. Well, if you had made a document in Microsoft Word 2018, you could still open it up in Microsoft Word 2005. It's just an update. That's a soft fork, I should say. That's a soft fork. A hard fork is when you can never go back. It's basically, in cryptocurrency sense, just a new cryptocurrency altogether. You can never go back. It is not backwards compatible. And let me just share, team, the solution, because what was the solution with the hard fork? Well, it just so happened that the hack happened in block 1,920,000. So let's just say the hack happened right here. Well, people wanted to do a hard fork in the block before it. So basically, it would be like the hack never happened. People would get their money back. That was the other solution. Well, they did the hard fork. Spoiler alert. The new chain was named Ethereum, or ETH for short, and the hard fork was mainly formed to refund all the money that was taken from everybody. Well, this proposal caused a huge controversy in the community, and there was a split. The people who were anti-hard fork refused to change the new blockchain and decided to remain in the old blockchain, naming it Ethereum Classic, or ETC. And this is where we come to the battle that is raging on in the Ethereum community as we speak. The battle between Ethereum Classic and Ethereum. This battle is fascinating because it's an ethical and ideological one. This is the very moment that Gavin Wood, the co-founder of Ethereum, has called the single most important moment in cryptocurrency history since the birth of Bitcoin. So let's put on our microscopic lenses and examine both of them in great detail. I think this is a little dramatic of Gavin to say, and I'm sure it was very dramatic at the time, but nonetheless, this is still a part of history, and we shall continue. I hope you guys are still with me out there. If so far you've gotten any value from this video, please give it a like. It just helps me grow as a channel. Alright, check this out. So why did people stick? This is a good question. Why did people stick with an old chain when all the Ethereum heavy hitters, including founders Vitalik Buterin and Gavin Wood, moved on to the new chain? Well, the answer is one that's a little more philosophical. You see, when Ethereum and crypto in general was introduced, it was supposed to be a stance against corruption. The reason why blockchain was made immutable was that they wanted the system to be resilient against human whims. Like I said, blockchain purists. This is why so many Ethereum Classic sympathizers, this is why, to so many ETC sympathizers, the hard fork is a convenient cop-out. If you are changing the entire chain because of one hack, then that completely defeats the purpose of Ethereum in the first place. You are proving that the blockchain can be affected by human whims, and this has resonated with a lot of crypto idealists. So like I said, these guys believe, live by the sword, die by the sword. We're not changing anything. Whatever happens, whatever hacks happen, happen. Well, this all sounds well and good, but there are some problems with Ethereum Classic, and that's why I bet a lot of you guys tuned in today, to hear the meat and potatoes of it all. And these problems simply can't be ignored. I'm just going to tell you the main one. The main problem with Ethereum Classic is the lack of backwards compatibility with the Ethereum hard fork. So all the heavyweights of the Ethereum community has moved on to the new chain, which means anybody who's part of Ethereum Classic, they're not going to be able to access any of the updates done by Ethereum. The perfect example is Ethereum's move to the proof of work, from proof of work to proof of stake. Ethereum Classic people, they're not going to be able to implement that because their software simply doesn't allow the use of the updates. Another great example is Vitalik Buterin, he's talking about eventually Ethereum is going to be able to handle all the volume that EOS and Cardano were created to solve. And if Ethereum eventually gets to handle, so much more volume, again, all these updates will not be able to be accessed by Ethereum Classic. That's the big problem. Well, Ethereum is the new form, or ETH is the new form of Ethereum, no matter what the detractors say. The original heavy hitters, stay with me guys, I promise we're almost done, and we're getting into it now. We're in the weeds. The original heavy hitters are all part of the system. So the original heavy hitters are all part of the new Ethereum, the Ethereum that we know. And ETH also happens to be the one, also happens to be the one going through the most revolutionary changes. Yes, we know this. Ethereum was formed for one reason. Ethereum, I repeat, was formed for one reason and one reason alone: to return the funds stolen by the DAO attacker back to its rightful owners. So it's kind of funny to me that one little hacker changed the world of Ethereum. Ethereum represents so much more than what it appears to be on the surface. So these are all the benefits of Ethereum. Ethereum represents so much more than what it appears to be on the surface. It represents a victory for the Ethereum community. They came together after facing one of the worst hacks in crypto history, stuck together, and made something that is stronger than its predecessor. But having said that, as we mentioned before, there is one problem with Ethereum, and according to pro ETC, Ethereum Classic fans, it's an ideological one. Do you guys know what it is? The problems with Ethereum. Like we mentioned before, the formation of Ethereum goes against the idea of immutability of the blockchain and the philosophy of code being law. Humans should not be a factor. In the eyes of the anti-Ethereum folks, the hard fork was a cop-out from Ethereum, and they should have accepted the main blockchain for what it is, warts and all. And here's the issue with Ethereum. Another issue that was raised was how was anybody going to know for sure that no more hard forks were going to take place in the future, subject to human whim? How many hard forks are there going to be? What if there are multiple hard forks creating different versions of Ethereum? What if there are hundreds of different Ethereum running at the same time? Won't this devalue the crypto? And full disclosure team, this article, which I really like, I will leave the link in the description, because this guy, he deserves all the congratulations. But I mean, as we've seen with Bitcoin, there are many hard forks that have happened to Bitcoin and other coins, and it's certainly not devalued Bitcoin, in my opinion. And I don't think it will in the long run, I should say. So I don't think this is much of a problem. And yeah, that's it. That is the history of how Ethereum Classic came to be. I hope you guys took some value out of that. Let's talk about the main point. Is this coin something we should be investing in? Well, right off the bat, right now, it's extremely pumped. Yes, it went down a little bit in the last day, but it's still up very high from what it was before the announcement. So now, not a great time to enter. Keep this in mind too, guys. Keep this in mind. I've seen this on some of the forums. Coinbase just said they're adding this coin in the next couple months. So when's that going to be? So really they're just saying, is it next month? Is it in August? Whatever the answer is, I'm sure this coin will have time to get in. If this is something you guys are passionate about, I'm sure you'll have time to get in. Me personally, I'm probably never going to invest in this because there's a better mousetrap out there. And yes, this will be a great investing opportunity because once this gets on Coinbase, I definitely see it maybe 2, maybe 3xing what it is right now currently. So you could make money. But just in my opinion, you can make money on a lot of cryptos, and this is just not one I'm that passionate about. Cool. So I hope you guys took some value out of this. Let me know in the comments. Did you guys take advantage of the pump? Hopefully the pump didn't take advantage of you. And will you be investing in Ethereum Classic in the future? Let me know in the comments. Again, feel free to subscribe to the channel if you got some value out of today, and we'll see you tomorrow.